Welcome back to another episode of Picking Up the Pixels RPG Love. I'm your host, Boston. Joining me as always is Musim.
Hello.
Uh, hold on, I got the wrong scene here for the video. Let me click that button and that moves to the other one. There we go. That's Musim. That's the right name under him. How are you doing, Musim?
I am okay. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. Back from our holiday break. I think we've both played a bunch of RPGs, so let's just dive into it. Musim, what have you been playing since we last spoke?
So I did a lot of depression spending and bought a ton of games and
Yeah.
played like 4 or 5 of them. Um,
Okay.
but having that, I can't remember if I had it last episode, but I have a Steam Deck now.
Yes, I think we talked
What?
about it briefly in the last one. Yeah.
Okay. I can't remember how long. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Point being, Steam Christmas sale had meaning to me again, um,
Yes.
even if they aren't quite the discounts from 20 years ago.
Right.
Or 15. I don't know what year it is. Um, so I played a little bit more Fallout 4 on Steam Deck
hmm
because I'd picked up the Game of the Year edition. Um, Man, it's such a weird game. It is so mixed for me because I love the we're gonna have a piece of powered armor and put it in your garage like a car you're working on, and
Right.
like that's a fun aspect of it. But my compulsion with every settlement I run into is to put in the hack that gives me all the materials and just spend hours on end building it and then never
Right.
follow the story.
Right.
Um, but anyway, basically, I played that until the Christmas sale and then bought a bunch of games and played those. So um, I have played a metric ton of Vampire Survivors.
Yeah.
Um, I have, gosh, I think I don't know if I've unlocked all the characters. I have no, it seems like every time I think I've unlocked them, I find another menu that's like, do these things. Like I
Uh
unlocked a
huh.
tree. I can be a tree now.
Yep. Tree's really good. Yeah. One of the best and craziest part about that game is like, all right, I've unlocked all 10 characters. I'm good. And the game's like, you unlocked more. And it's like, I'm. Wait, what? And it's like, all right, I unlocked 20 characters. I'm good. And it's like, nope, still not done. Keep going. There's a panda. You haven't gotten him yet. It's just like, I swear.
Crap.
Okay.
I didn't know about the panda. I don't have the panda.
Oh yeah, there's a panda, there's a tree, there's a question mark, there's just a giant rock with a dude in it. There's a lot of so Vampire Survivors is really good. I one of the smartest things that game has is eventually you unlock they call it like the secrets menu. It's not really what it is. It's essentially just a giant checklist of everything to unlock in the game. And by the time that I completed it, it was 142 items. Um, but it's really great because it's like survive for 8 minutes on this level with this character. That will unlock something. It's like, cool. I will go do that. I'll check off that checkbox. Oh, that got me a weapon or a character or something. It got me some unlockable. Let's keep going down this list. And that made it a lot better of
Yeah.
I know what I need to do in this list.
It's that's kind of so I have that unlocked, and that's kind of what I've been doing is I've been okay, what's a character that I haven't survived for 20 or 30 minutes, whatever that is, with,
Right.
and what's a level that I need to do something in? And
Yep.
I've gotten, there's like 150 items or something. I bought the DLC too, by the way.
Yeah, I
Um,
don't I don't have the DLC yet because I was I was waiting. It's Vampire Survivors is a real problem for me because it's runs are only 30 minutes long. So I had to finish all of my Game of the Year editing and posting and recording before I allowed myself to buy this game, and I have not yet done it quite yet.
mm, mm. So I haven't played too much into the DLC. Like I have not
Mhm.
figured out how to get the extra character, but also it's it's just got lists within lists. I unlocked some list that was like it's not the achievement list, but it's like another list that is
Oh,
like
like the cheats list?
yeah,
Yeah.
and there's like a spell thing you can enter, and I have
Yep.
not figured out the spell thing. I thought
Uh,
it was like I do an item over here, and then it gives me a code for here, and that does not seem to be the case.
Yeah, it's kind of a combination of here are weird extra things you can do in levels where one of them is like in the dairy level find the cheese and it's like okay. And the other ones are like you can put in a code. A lot of those codes are for unlocking characters early. So like if you played this on PC and you picked it up on Game Pass on Xbox, you don't want to go unlock everything again. You can put in a bunch of codes to like, here's Poe, here's the panda, here's the rock guy, here's
Mm,
the, and start unlocking all that stuff without having to do X, Y, and Z to get that stuff normally.
gotcha. Okay,
Yeah.
well that's good to know.
Yeah, I unlocked very few things on that list because a lot of them, even after I looked them up, they're like, be a good boy in the flower level. And it's like, okay, I don't even know what that means. And when I looked it up, it's like, I'm not going to do that. That's not, that's too much.
So that's the one I did because that's the only one. Like it said that I'm like they got to be talking about the dog. I just got to go be
Yep.
the dog in that level for X amount of time. And then I went to that
Yep.
level. And I'm like, oh, this is the level with no enemies.
Yeah, the really weird flower level.
Yeah, that was. Anyway, I did it. I don't have to play that level again. It's fine.
Right. Yeah, we did a whole. If anyone doesn't listen to We Roguelike It over on TVGP, our final game of last year was Vampire Survivors, and both Moon and I found a very large problem with this game, which is it's too good, and I spent too much time doing it.
Yeah.
I couldn't stop playing the game until I unlocked absolutely everything. And part of the reason why I liked it so much is, and I kind of figured it out by the time we finished playing it, is it's the perfect arcade game. At most, runs are going to take 30 minutes. Because if anyone hasn't played it, at 30 minutes, the game comes and essentially kills you, and it's like you beat a run. Good job. And it's really easy to say, got 30 more minutes. Sure, I can do another run, or I got 2 hours. I could do a couple of runs, sure. And then that very quickly turns into like, all I played today was Vampire Survivors. I could probably play a little bit more. Sure, why not? So that game is really good.
Yeah. I think I had like 40 hours in it within 2 weeks, which is a lot for me like nowadays. Like
Yep.
I'm like a 10-hour a week gamer at most, like currently. But I guess not through December. December was not that at all. But
well, and that's also the insidious thing about it being on the Steam Deck, is like also why it would probably do really well on the Switch, which it's not out on yet. It's just that thing where it's like, you don't need to pay 100% attention to Vampire Survivors. It's going to shoot for you. So you just got to keep moving and make some decisions about kind of what you want to evolve and synergize and whatnot. So, yeah, you watching a show at the same time? Sure. Why not binge a new show?
Pretty much. I watched through all of his Dark Materials while
There you
playing
go.
that. So, yeah. Gosh, that was, I don't know. That game, whatever it costs, is like way cheaper than it needs to be. Like
it is $5, and the DLC is the incredible exorbitant price of $2.
It is worth all those costs, and that DLC level is, man, it's like an actual, like, whereas all the other levels are kind of one direction or four direction kind of levels.
Yeah,
this one actually is like, oh, I can't access this area of the map unless I find the right path to it. Like,
oh, interesting. Okay.
And I haven't fully dug into that and what that means, but it seems cool. It seems like it has some cool potential.
That's interesting. Yeah, Vampire Survivors gets my highest recommendation. It was very high on my top 10 list this past year. I don't remember where it was. I think it was like 2 or 3 on my top 10 list. It's one of those games where like everybody was going nuts about it in early access. I was like, yeah, okay, like sure. Well, yeah, it's gonna be really great. And then like maybe an hour into it, and I was like, I'm in trouble. This game's really great. And then it just gets bigger and better and crazier after that.
Yeah. Let's see. So continuing on, I kind of downloaded and installed 2 games at the same time. One of them's an RPG. One of them's really not, but I'm going to briefly talk about it if you're all right with that.
Oh, sure.
And those games are God of War, Ragnarok, and Elden Ring.
I'd say both of those are.
Yeah, I mean Elden Ring
RPGs.
Definitely. God of War is I'm iffy on, but that also maybe because I don't know. I've been trying to think about how to talk about both of these games because I know Elden Ring is fairly universally loved, and God
Hmm.
of War at least has a faction of it that's very adamant about its quality. And I am not enjoying really. I'm not enjoying Elden Ring, and God of War Ragnarok. I think is I think you were correct when you call it a slog. Like I really like the
Hmm.
story, but I think the world in it is incredibly boring.
Yeah, I finished Ragnarok sort of before we went on holiday break from the podcast, and I have a lot of thoughts about Ragnarok, and it's largely a really great game. It's a lot of fun to play. Like it just like the 2018 one. It's so much fun to do the kind of like light Dark Souls kind of combat system they really try to go for, and like sailing around these various worlds, and you and the kid and Mimir kind of talking, like all that stuff is really great. The game just cannot stop getting in its own way. Like it just cannot stop having overly long cutscenes that need to be trimmed by about 50% almost each and every time. And like by the time I feel like I'm getting into a rhythm of, oh, the combat feels really great, I unlocked something new, I'm in a new area, it just pumps the brakes every time. It's like, all right, let's talk about some stuff. Let's interrupt you while you're trying to do a puzzle. It's a cool game that just needs to get out of its own way.
Oh man, I may have the opposite problem from you then. So
Okay.
so my issue is like I find it really easy to get confused in the environments. Like the
Yes.
overall map is really bad.
I would wholeheartedly agree with that.
Like some of the puzzles I like, but there's no like when you think of the 2018 God of War or whatever year that previous one came out,
Mhm.
like you have kind of this emotional through with it.
Yes.
And I don't have that in Ragnarok. And part of that may be because I'm not a parent, so maybe there's just like an emotional connection to the friction between Kratos and Atreus that I'm missing. But like for the most part, I'm like, we don't actually have to do anything, guys. Like,
Right. We could just nod. And
yeah, like we don't have some request we're fulfilling
right.
from your mom. Like, we're just kind of you're bored, so we're doing this, Atreus. Like,
Right. As a parent, I would also agree. I really don't like Atreus. Kind of as a character overall. I was hoping that this game, there's a pretty considerable amount of time between the end of the first game and the beginning of this one. Like Atreus is quite a bit older. Um, I was hoping that would result in a character that was a little bit more sufferable. He's kind of not.
yeah.
I don't know if you've I don't know how far you've gotten. Have you done like the yak part with Atreus? If I
Gosh, I don't even remember.
if
I know I've how do I talk about it without spoiling it? Like I've
that's the hard part. Like
like we
when I
have
say the
split up and like they have after 20 to 25 hours, they
mhm.
have finally started telling each other the truth.
Okay.
Uh,
So yeah,
and that,
I think you've done some parts, but like I think for me the emotional payoff at the end of the game, uh, it happened in a way that I was pretty satisfied with. I think it eventually got there. Um, I think it's a real bummer that the they got one of my favorite actors to play the main villain of that game. I don't want to say who, just in case anyone hasn't started playing it. I really like that dude. Um, and I feel like they squandered him a little bit near the end, but not in a terrible way. But I was pretty happy that the game got there by the end. It just took a really long time to get there.
yeah, like there's like some of the story beats I really like and are really touching.
Hmm.
but I feel like this game needs to be cut in half in terms of like story, in terms of what
Yep.
you're doing in it. Like, because I mean, it's kind of we'll call it my gaming personality, right? I need
Hmm.
something to drive me through it. Like,
Right.
I I I can't just be one of those mechanical only people. So like that's why something like Breath of the Wild didn't grab me. Like no direction,
Sure.
pure
Gotcha.
mechanics. Like it's just not going to grab my brain, you know.
Right.
Um, and this one is more leaning towards that, which is fine. But I'm again like the whole time I'm like, why are we doing anything? Like,
Yeah, especially coming off of 2018, like you said, where 2018's biggest strength was you have this mission from your wife. Like there's is a very clear mission of go do this thing. Whether you feel it's compelling or not, like there's a very strong
yeah,
sort of through line through the entire thing, and I think it's really funny that you and I are both kind of on the same page with this. That I also agreed this game should be cut by at least 5 to 7 hours,
yeah,
which
yeah,
is kind of a wild thing to think for a game like this. Because the first game I thought was paced incredibly well,
yeah.
um, and this
That
one,
first game was absolutely amazing
yeah, I
from the
agree.
various weapons introduced and like yeah, give me a slow walk with a smoldering emotional story, you know, like
Yep,
that's perfect. I'll eat it up. Like I don't need to be like angry for 30 hours to go kill
right,
something. Uh
yeah,
I
and
love the touching reflective nature of these games, you know.
right, and I think the game. How do I talk about this without spoiling it? I think the game asks some interesting questions about the nature of prophecy and fates that I think is kind of cool. In it's a smart idea for these games to not drop the previous God of War games, like the first couple ones. I think I think there's like one or two of the PSP games aren't canon anymore, but that's fine. Um, but it's really interesting for them to ask some questions, and it's not like it's a brand new Kratos. Don't worry about that Greek stuff. No one that never happened. But sort of framing some of these questions around the stuff that happened in those the PS2 and PS3 games. Um, I think that's really interesting, but I don't know if it does the best job of kind of settling into it. I think they do a really good attempt at it, but um, it pays off near the end, but not 100% every time, which is
Yeah.
kind of a bummer.
I was really hoping gosh, I really thought I was about to beat the game when they started telling each other the truth again. And I was
Yeah,
wrong.
no.
And then it gave me another thing. I'm like, oh my gosh, what are we? Just go to freaking Asgard, guys. Just go
Yet on the
do the
podcast,
thing.
I called it the Columbo problem because they're like, "All right, we're gonna do this thing. One more thing, though," and it's like, "No, let me just go do the thing." And they're like, all right, we're finally prepped to do the big thing. One more thing, though. It's like, stop,
Yeah,
please. I just want to go do the thing.
it's I
Uh,
I don't know. I don't hate God of War, and I'm going to beat
no.
it.
Yep.
Like it is the game I've been playing most because I would like to finish it.
Right.
But it's I just don't see it being that great. I'm surprised it won game of the year at all. But like
I
it's a finely made game.
yeah.
I don't. Mm,
Well, and I for me, I think it ended up at like fifth or sixth on my top 10 list
mm,
last year, which God of War 2018 when it came out was number one with a bullet. Like that's, and I'm not saying again, we're not saying this game is bad, so don't
yeah.
add us about like I can't believe you guys hate PlayStation. Like I don't even turn on my Series X anymore. But like the other thing too that kind of made me feel better about this game is like I said before, one of my biggest problems is it can't get out of its own way, and when it takes the training wheels off, I like this game a whole lot. Um, and when you finish the game, they unlock a whole bunch of new stuff for you to do. That's kind of post game content that is. indicative of what happened kind of in the last couple of hours. And they just take the training wheels off and they unlock everything. And they're like, whatever you want to do in the game, go crazy. You can just go everywhere and you can do anything. And the game feels really good at that point because there's no like, we're going to go to this realm, except, and it's like, nope, we're everything's available. And I felt a lot more positively about the game at that point because it just kind of, it taking the training wheels off and letting you just play the game, which is part of what I wanted.
That would be nice. Like
Yeah.
like the first 20 hours, like I'm going through the levels and I'm like, oh gosh, this is like when you're in a world that's all like kind of samey. So I have a hard time keeping my direction sense about it.
Yep.
And every time I saw something I couldn't like that they put like those Metroidvania type things
Right.
of
We should come back here when we have a different power. Wink.
yeah,
And it's like,
like
okay.
I don't want to.
I want to go over where this
I
thing
don't
is.
have any faith that there's going to be anything besides a chest back there. Like,
right. Yeah.
And luckily, like to the game's credit, like although that was a fear, it seems like they kind of drag you through a lot of those areas again anyway. So it's less like dependent on you to go do it, which
Yeah.
I do appreciate. Well, I do and I don't appreciate it. I want it to be shorter. But
well, and if they don't
they're
drag
gonna
you,
have it, I appreciate they did it.
yeah, and if they don't drag you back through those areas, I found that largely when you revisit those areas with all the tools in your arsenal later in the game, there's usually something good back there, like a really rare upgrade material or like an end game piece of gear or something, or like one of the upgrade materials for your weapons. So usually it's not like here's 2,000 hack silver. You know, it's nothing like that. It's usually something that is worth the while.
Honestly, I would be good if they put more money into it because like I can't. Maybe it changes by the end of the game, but I don't see any world where I can. Like I kind of just have to pick one set of armor and stick with upgrading that. Like I mean, I guess it's nice in that any new pieces you find are typically the level of what you're currently wearing, but it's
Yeah.
still like I don't want to experiment with the other armors because I'm afraid I'm not going to like them as much, and I won't have
Right.
resources to go back to my old one. You know.
By the end of the game, they're pretty much dumping that stuff on you. Where it's like,
Okay,
here's a
good.
ton of upgrades, and here's just a metric ton of hack silver, and here's a vendor that you can buy upgrade materials from with hack silver, and you're just kind of they give you the tools by the end, which is nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wish I was closer to the end, I think is what.
yeah. I felt like that around the point you're at too.
Yeah. So Elden Ring, the game I dread most about talking about, because I'm trying to figure out how not to just sound like an ancient person.
Right.
So, like, Elden Ring was a game I was never going to play, but I had too many people who are my real life friends discounting my love for other games because I didn't want anything to do with Elden Ring.
As someone who I played Demon's Souls when it came out on the PS3, and I'm like, I really loved this, and I don't want to play another one of these again. I get a very similar attitude of like, well,
yeah,
how could you love RPGs if you didn't even want to play Elden Ring? And it's like, I got my reasons, man. Come on.
yeah, like, well, and I know that like that combat system has evolved a little, but you know, Demon Souls, me too. Like I beat Demon Souls on PS3, right?
Yep.
And then I started to play Dark Souls, and then I got to the Poison Swamp area, and I said, I never want to play one of these areas again. It's not that I don't think I can do it; it's that it is completely unenjoyable. Like,
yeah, and you did it already in Demon Souls. Like
exactly.
I've already done the thing.
So to me, I just like I picked up in my head at the time. I was like, no, okay, I'll just come back here when I have more patience. And then Dark Souls 2 came out, and I bought it and never played it. And Bloodborne came out, and I bought it and tried playing it. And I'm like, man, this is going to take a long time for me to get good at this game.
Right. Yeah, which is another one of my problems that they're
yeah,
like an intense experience to get good at those games, and it's not something I shy away from, but they're tiring for me. Like getting good in these games that have, part of the reason why I like and dislike them is they don't they don't suffer fools, and they like you really have to be on top of your game. But I don't want to be 100% of the time. You
Yeah.
know?
Like I'm playing games into my like so I know a lot of people get like a huge sense of satisfaction from playing these games.
Yeah.
And 10 years ago I was absolutely there, but right now I am I am in my 40s. There are some things I would like to accomplish outside of video games. So
Right.
like if I have to put in a bunch of time, like every game's going to have its own language and its own control language to learn and adapt to and
Oh, for
whatnot. And
sure.
had I stuck with all the Souls games, then I would not be in the boat I'm in now because I would have already known that language and I could easily jump into any of them and play through
Yeah,
them.
it's a Soulsborne. I know how to play these.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I have not been playing them, so I
Right.
have to relearn it, and I really don't want to.
Yeah.
And that is like, I started Elden Ring. I've been told it reinvents the open world for a long time, and as someone who like, for me, my thing I want to do most in an open world game is explore. And the
Hmm.
more you put in the way of me being able to explore a game, the less I'm going to like your game.
Oh, sure.
Um, just period. Like
Right.
that was I'm gonna blank out on any examples now. Like to me, like one of the appeals of Skyrim is I can just walk off in this direction. I'm gonna find a village or something or a city,
Hmm.
and there's gonna be a bunch of stories and a bunch of things for me to read and talk to other characters about.
Right.
And Elden Ring takes that concept and says, let's be like Breath of the Wild and not have any tutorialization. I say
Hmm.
that they have the tutorial dungeon that I ran, which is
Oh, okay.
fine, I guess. But like the UI in that game is horrendous for anyone who doesn't know what that stuff already is. Um,
Yeah, because I guess it's probably like hopping into Destiny 2 now if you haven't played for a couple of years, and it's like, oh well, of course you know how to do X, Y, and Z. And it's like, no,
well,
I don't.
it's like I was looking through the character builds, for instance, and like I
Hmm.
found I can't remember. I thought like I usually like doing warrior mage. I'm like, okay, I've heard magic and summons are kind of broken in this, so maybe if I
Mm.
focus on a build that will eventually be that with a little bit of melee to it, that maybe I will make the souls combat tolerable for me.
Okay.
Um, and so I chose a character who I can't remember what the class's name, but they had a high arcane stat, but they had
Gotcha.
a dagger. And I
Oh, okay.
started playing it, and then I started talking to my nephew, who is a huge Elden Ring fan, and he says, "Yeah, the arcane is not actually magic."
Oh my god.
It's like
Okay,
arcane
could have
is
fooled me.
how well like poison abilities work for you, or something like that. I'm
Okay.
like, okay, that's fine. That's terrible labeling. There's no
Yeah.
if there's a button like for me to hover over things and see like an explanation of each stat, I have not found it. But
Right.
I also have not, to be very, very clear, I've not spent a ton of time on this game.
Yeah.
Because it became evident I was not going to be able, like its control scheme and God of War's control scheme conflicted too much for me to keep playing them concurrently.
Right. Right.
Um, so like this is kind of my first impressions of it and my feeling of despair as I'm going into this.
Right.
Um, like it's fine. Like it's a big open world where instead of finding stories and things like that, you just find new battles, which
Hmm.
is I get like if you're kind of a gamer who just wants mechanical play, like this is absolutely your nirvana.
Yeah. They're giving you what you like, and then they added like 400% more of it.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
for me, if there was a button that I could just turn off the combat and wander around the world, I would do it.
Oh
Like
yeah.
that is
What's sort of funny is I feel like I'm one of the few people that liked that Immortals Phoenix Rising game that Ubisoft put out, because it's very much like this game, but as opposed to it being um it's not as aimless as Breath of the Wild is, although it has a similar structure, as a much more solidified story. And kind of counter to how Elden Ring focuses primarily on combat, Phoenix focused primarily on puzzles. So you're kind of tripping over one puzzle after another in the world, and the combat's kind of probably a little bit easier than it needs to be, but that's okay because I'm largely like, here's a brand new area, and here's 50 environmental puzzles just strewn all over this world, and it's like, yes, that's exactly what I'm here for. Thank you. So
Nice.
you might like that
That's
game.
maybe I'll steer back around to it. It's
Yeah,
I bought too many long games right now, so it may be a minute.
right. Yeah,
Um,
I certainly don't blame you.
oh my gosh, and okay, I'll wrap up my thoughts on Elden Ring. So, um, we've already established I don't like the combat, particularly in Souls games anymore, and
Hmm.
I'm also okay. This is gonna be a hot take. I apologize if
I
you
like it.
receive angry email for it. Um, I think this combat system has not evolved and it was never all that great to begin with. And the reason people like it is because it is something you can develop your own personal skills in to be good at.
Mm,
But I think in
sure.
execution, you have too many buttons for not a lot of variation. You have a lot of nonsensical buttons. This is more sensical, I think, than past games, in that you just have a straight up jump button.
Mm.
But your jump backwards button and your roll button are dependent on how long you press the same button.
Oh,
For
okay.
instance, um, I don't think uh, I don't think the animations on the main character look good. Um,
Hmm.
like when you look at something like God of War and how Kratos moves with all his everything, like it's really good looking and fluid, and you can kind of relate your brain to the movements. And I
Hmm.
think Elden Ring is more dependent on people like looking for the matrix in it, basically, right? Because you talk
Sure.
about iframes, you have X amount of iframes between would you execute this move or this roll or whatever the heck it is.
Right.
And I think if you came to one of these games for the first time at some point, you would feel like this is not a great control scheme.
Well, and
uh,
and it is sort of tough comparing not 100% apples and oranges between Ragnarok and Elden Ring, but they are very different approaches
yeah,
to game making. Where Ragnarok tries to have open areas, but it's definitely not an open world game like
yeah,
Elden Ring is.
yeah. Well, and I mean that was another. I wish it was a little bit more open, honestly. Like I get
Hmm.
tired of, "Duh, it's time to load the next area, so Kratos is going to crawl through this crack."
Yeah, yeah, it's very much like a last two gen kind of game where it's
Yeah,
like, all right, come on, you and Atreus, we're gonna shimmy our way through this crack in the wall. It's like, uh-huh,
yeah.
doing this for
Elden
10
Ring
years.
does feel really big, and seeing those gold trees in the background, like those things look amazing.
And I do have to give Elden Ring a lot of credit because I haven't I'm like I'm tired of people talking about Elden Ring. I like talking about it on the show because Nimp over on TVGP is a longtime fan. I like hearing his kind of minutia about how these games have changed, and I appreciate your hot takes because you're not here saying like I love everything, it's faultless. But man, the art direction and a lot of stuff in Elden Ring is really cool. It's the polar opposite of Ragnarok, and I think they do that kind of like gothic architecture, ruined European castle thing really well that I kind of appreciate that From Software has always done.
Yeah. So if you're listening and you're angry at me, I'm sorry. We just disagree. That's all it is. There's nothing against you. I'm glad people love these games.
Yeah, 100%.
Um, I would like you not to make that the entirety of game, like some of the Elden Rings fans' comments make it sound like they want,
Yeah.
because that would eliminate me from gaming, to be
Right.
blunt.
Right.
Um, but once I beat God of War, I'm going to give this game its genuine fair shake.
Yeah.
I've had several of my friends kind of point out areas nearby I can go to, but I've already tried to go to one and I just, die over and over again. And it's like,
Mm,
well, is there, I don't know. Anyway, I'll figure it out later. And I'm sure it is one of those games I will play for 5 to 10 hours and then start over.
right,
Um,
right,
but I'm not going to promise more than, we'll say, half a year in the game unless I just fall in love with it, which is,
right.
I'm open to.
It might happen.
But
You never know.
yeah, it is very much a game I wanted to skip. So I blame Elden Ring's fans.
Right.
Um, Definitely not the money I spent in me playing the game.
That's right.
Um, so, man, I left this off my list, but I picked up Midnight Suns.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
so Justin from the Tiltcast was playing it and really talked to me about it a bunch because once they announced it was a card game, I was a little bit nervous, but then once talking to him and looking online, it's like, oh, this is like a deck building game, like
Yeah, because you typically don't like kind of card based RPGs, right?
right.
Okay.
And this is very much that, but it's like I'm looking for the name of one. Like when I say deck building game, I know a lot of people think of like Magic the Gathering or Pokemon, and those are not what I'm talking
Hearthstone or
about.
something. Yeah.
There's a a series of game styles where you kind of just go buy the box and it comes with everything in it, and they'll gradually release expansions, and you'll get all in
Mm.
ones with that, and you'll
Y-
have like a deck that's the shop, a deck that's the monsters in the dungeon or attacking the
yeah, yeah,
city.
yeah. Yeah, because this game is essentially like XCOM, but your move set, like your commands in the game are cards, right?
It it probably doesn't benefit to compare it to XCOM. Like
Oh, okay.
visually, like you have that angled view and kind of the
Yeah, the
same
like
kind
half
of
cover, full cover kind of thing.
no cover.
Oh,
This
interesting.
this game is about managing mobs. Um,
Oh, okay.
so like, you get Spider-Man and you want him to attack the guy across the room. He's just gonna go over there and attack the guy across the room.
Yeah,
Like
because
there's
you can just
no
like swing over there.
Yeah, like there's little to no movement restrictions. And it
Okay.
is a lot of the mission types are you have, usually 3 or 4 guys, usually 3, actually, when I think about it. I'm not very far in this game either.
Hmm.
Um, and like there'll be like Hydra has a truck that we want you to destroy before it takes off. And
Okay.
like each round, more Hydra troops will come in. So you want like a team that can, like, one character can maybe keep everyone from getting knocked out, and then the other characters, their goal is like you can play 3 cards a turn, but they have like certain cards with attributes called like quick, where if you play a card with the quick attribute and you KO an enemy,
Hmm.
then you get your card play back. Um,
Oh, interesting.
so
Okay.
it's kind of this interesting combo, build up this meter over here so that you can like throw a light post at a character or something like
Oh,
that, or
okay.
execute other moves. It's honestly, it's like if so okay, so that's the gameplay, but the feel of the game, I feel like they took Marvel's Avengers Academy and Marvel's Strike Force and made a
Yeah.
$60 game with a really fun, hard, very hard, but like
Mhm.
easy to understand combat system. Like
All right.
that is the flavor of this. Like
Okay.
in between missions, you're at like a base where your characters are lounging around, and there's like you have friendship building opportunities. You can literally go on a picnic with any of the. You can go on a picnic with Ghost Rider if you want, or
Right,
Wolverine.
like this
Like
is the part that I was kind of the most interested in, where you have this like relationship and friendship kind of team building with all of these superheroes and your main
yeah,
character, like almost kind of like JRPG style.
yeah. Like it is 100% JRPG style.
That's
Like
great.
it is like you choose your missions from a a big table. You have like research projects, which I guess would be like XCOM, to
Mm.
kind of get better cards or better combat abilities. Like I'm about to unlock an ability that will um like you get okay, so when you're in combat, you can like the angle you're attacking at the enemy matters in terms of like if you're causing the enemy knockback to knock back into something.
Oh,
So
like you can, like you can push them into like an explosive barrel or something.
exactly. Um,
Interesting.
so they give you one move action a turn that you can give to a character, right?
Hmm.
So you can angle them and set up the,
Chain
whatever
reaction thing.
dominoes that you're going for.
Right.
And the thing I'm about to unlock allows me to attack them during a move action, um,
Oh, okay.
which will be super appealing. I think that's what it does. It's either attack them or knock them back. It's one of the two. It doesn't matter. Both of them
Right.
would be wonderful to have. Actually, knockback would be better, but um, it's each round is a day, so you'll spend, depending on what mission you do, you'll probably spend 30 to 45 minutes in a combat deal, and the combat is brutally hard. I'm probably gonna have to lower the difficulty.
Oh, okay.
Um, and then you go back to your base, and you will probably spend an hour every time at your base because you're going to go around, you're going to talk to each of the characters, and hopefully build their
Yeah.
friendship meter. Because like a Persona game or something, the more you build their friendship, the more likely you are to get a deck upgrade card that you can put into your deck.
Gotcha. Do they do better in combat missions too, the more that you're friends with them?
If you so they have a training mechanic, and if you train with them, they'll get some type of bonus in that mission.
Gotcha. Okay.
And the bonuses I've seen are like you get 4 move actions this turn, or
Oh, wow.
um, I forget what else.
Okay. That's cool though.
It's yeah, and like you can only have so many cards in each character's deck, right? Like, and I think it's like
Hmm.
7 cards or something like that. Um, and any excess cards you can either break down for material, or if it's a double of one that's in your deck, you can fuse them and make a new card that's a little bit better and usually has another
Gotcha.
attribute. Um, it's a really like I love this game. Like it's the difficulty is maybe a bit much for me. I may have to. It's my own fault. Like at some point, the game's like, "Hey, you want to upgrade to heroic difficulty?" And I said, "Sure," because I'm
Yeah, why not?
smart.
I'm a I'm
And
a I'm a pro at these games. Yeah, let's be heroic.
yeah, and I need to level it back down. It's become way too hard.
Right.
But it's super cool. Like each of the characters seems to play fairly different. There's a lot of dialogue between everyone. Um, the main character, like a lot of your conversation paths, kind of guide whether you're going to be like a damager or healer or whatnot.
Hmm.
It's gosh, I feel like you would love this game, Boston. Honestly,
The thing that it reminds me the most of, and it's not a 100% um, similarity here, but it reminds me a lot of the Metal Gear Acid games on PSP, where your equipment, like I'm going to use a gun to shoot an enemy. That gun is a card. I'm gonna move. It sounds like movement isn't a card in this game, which is nice.
yeah.
But I really liked those games, and this. It seems like this game shares enough DNA with it that I seems like it's a thing I would really enjoy.
Yeah, like I think everything works and communicates well.
Mm.
And I've been like the main negative things I can say about it is they have never released their Steam Deck patch, and I've been playing on Steam Deck and had to do like to get it to work right on Steam Deck, you have to like set it to this specific version of Proteus, and then you
Oh,
have
right.
to put in this command line to enable DirectX 11 or something like that.
Mm.
Um,
So you got to do some finagling.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, it's I know it's not a game for everyone, but if like it's fun combat, and if you like seeing your Marvel characters maybe be a little goofy with each other, like you'd get out of like an Avengers Academy or Avengers Strike Force,
Yeah,
then
like having a little bit of fun between missions seems like it's really cool.
yeah, like your home base area is massive. Like you will
Oh,
be
wow.
wandering around there forever. It looks like there's a lot of like unlockable sections to it too.
Mm.
Um, there's a lot of fun social mechanics. So far, it is not like every day and visit to your base is a well, that's a day. Um, and it has not seemingly penalized me for I'm going to do this mission today and these things. Like it'll tell you if a mission like you have to complete this within 3 days type of thing. And
Oh, okay.
um,
It's a little bit like Persona, where it's like you got to do this before the full moon, but figure it out. You do whatever you want.
yeah,
That's nice. I'm gonna have to check this out. I've heard a little bit about it, but I think you talking about it now is probably the most I've heard about it, sort of overall. I feel like a lot of people have kind of been distilling this down into I like XCOM, but I don't like this game. It's kind of dumb, which is a bummer because it sounds like that's selling it really short.
yeah. Like obviously made by the XCOM devs, but like the
Yeah.
moment you find out there's no cover in this game.
Yeah, I had no idea because like it very much looks like. I'm going to
Yeah.
talk about another game that's exactly like XCOM here in a little bit, but like it very much looked like that, where it's like, oh yeah, it's like a half cover, full cover thing. It's an XCOM. That
Yeah,
sort of thing.
and it feels good like you're like the moment you take a light pole and just knock out a row of enemies with it,
Mm-hmm.
like and every character, the super strong characters will just go rip out the light pole and knock it down, but like a
Right.
Spider-Man will use his webs to pull it down, or Blade will run up and cut it with his sword or something. Which Blade is highly entertaining in this because he's like very serious and uber training guy. Like,
Right.
let me put it this way: when you're introduced to training, you're given a dialogue option, and Blade's like, "Are you ready to start training?" Or you can start asking him questions. So I started asking him questions. He's like, "Can't we do this after training?" And if you keep asking him questions, you get a negative on his friendship thing.
Oh man,
you
do you have
binge.
do you have magic unlocked? Have you gotten her yet?
Yes.
Okay. The thing that really sold me on this game originally was someone saying that like if you want to be friends with magic, you can't pick the like RPG Mass Effect nice option. She's not
Yeah.
gonna like that, man. It's like that great. I feel like you kind of got it.
Pretty much. Yeah. She's
Yeah.
your main. Like, I guess I can give the kind of the basis of the story
Mhm.
is, um, Doctor Strange is Sanctum Sanctorum is under attack.
Mhm.
And so the Avengers show up to help, and then they have to evacuate, and Wanda gets trapped in it. And then you meet up with the Midnight Suns, who are Nico, Magic, Blade, uh, Ghost Rider, the Mexican kid with the car whose name escapes me. Um, I think there might be one more. And then you have the caretaker, and the caretaker is I think they made her up for this. I don't think she's from the comics, but
Oh, okay.
she is the person who helps bring your character back because you
Oh, I
are
gotcha.
a 300-year-old being called the Hunter.
Hmm.
And you can kind of choose your appearance and stuff. And the character models in this game are not like super great, like to be
They
clear.
they
But
look they look pretty I was almost going to use the word cartoony, but that's not fair. Like they look like kind of fun stylized, where they are not. This is certainly isn't the best looking game I've ever seen, but like Iron Man looks pretty cool. Like Doctor Strange has kind of a fun beard. Like they have a fun take on these
yeah,
characters.
well, and a lot of this is like the Midnight Suns are like the mystical group, and then you have like Iron Man who's just constantly like, I don't like magic.
Right. What about? Are we talking about magic again? Come on, guys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's fun. The clashing is kind of fun, and I know they're going to bring in all the popular characters at some point, which is
Oh,
fine.
sure.
But I am here for the weird Midnight Suns magic
Yep.
weird guys,
Yep.
But anyway, I like that game. I look forward to playing it more.
Yeah, that looks cool.
Let's see. Okay, continuing on. I'll try and. Oh, right. Our game club game this month is Pentiment.
Yes.
Um, I won't really talk about it on here. It's kind of a. Well, okay, it doesn't matter. You should. It's on Game Pass. Like, you should join us and play it. It's a lot of text reading.
Yeah.
So just be prepared for that. And lastly, and from your Twitter, I gather you may have played this game more than I have. I picked up Chained Echoes.
Let me cross this off. This is my last my last game on the list, so we can use this as a good segue between the two of us. I have played A lot of Chained Echoes. Oh man, I've spent a considerable amount of time playing this game. I'll let you go first though, because I'm very curious to hear your thoughts about this.
Yeah, I'm not super far into it, but I love this game. Like I like the writing, I like the animation, I like how the first like hour of this game is all like weird little tributes and nods to like Chrono Trigger or Final
So like
Fantasy or
the
whatnot.
the very first 10 seconds of the game is like, oh, you're just doing Chrono Trigger, huh? And then the game literally punches you in the face, and I'm like, I give you a lot of credit, Chained Echoes. You know what you're doing, and
Yeah,
you got me. I really
yeah.
appreciate it.
I think a lot of the characters are fun. I think the
Yep,
animation is great. I think the combat system and the environments are near genius. Like
they're really good. This is a
I
hell of
am
a good looking game.
they made a game without random encounters and with less battles in it and made a
Yep,
really compelling turn-based system.
yep.
Like I'm
So
gosh.
so
Yeah.
for anyone that hasn't played this, um, the nicest thing I can say about Chained Echoes, I'm 25 hours into Chained Echoes. I just finished Act One, and whoa, that was a hot ending to Act One. Oh man, I I I feel like when we talk about love letters to 16-bit JRPGs, we typically think about games that are like, I loved Chrono Trigger, and I'm gonna make one, but it's gonna everything is gonna live the same as it lived on the Super NES. But what this, by the way, one dude made this game except for the music,
It's crazy.
which
That's
is
absolutely crazy.
there's so much in this game too. But what
There's
I think
so
was
much polish.
yeah, what I think was really smart is he obviously loves 16-bit RPGs. Like this game is very much a 16-bit RPG, but with all of the modern contrivances of an RPG that you would play today. I think one of the smartest things this game does is every time you go into an area that isn't a dungeon, so it's kind of like an overworld open area, they usually have like 6 to 9 map regions for one area. And every time you walk into a new region, it just gives you the entire map for that section. It's not like, oh, go figure it out, oh, go wander around. It doesn't care. It just gives you the whole map of that area. If you haven't made it to kind of like one of the quadrants, it doesn't give you a map there, but you usually tell whether you can leave to go to that area or not. And it just like, yeah, man, here you go. I just unlocked something where it's like, yeah, we'll just tell you how many chests you have in this area. No worries. We want
Dude,
you to explore these areas. But I think the and there's like weapon and armor upgrading and slotting gems and stuff like that. There's also a what initially looked like a Final Fantasy 12 licensed board that they unlocked, but which I was very excited about. But what that actually turns into is a mini challenge system where every tile on that board is a challenge to do in the game. And some of them are really easy, like explore everywhere in this one region, and then you fill in one of the tiles, or defeat 6 wolves in this area, and that fills in a tile. Each tile has a reward to it, so it'll give you a little bit of money and like some upgrade materials and maybe like a weapon or an item or something. But what gets really crazy is as you chain those tiles together, you get overall rewards too. So like more powerful rewards for unlocking 6 tiles that connect, and then 12, 18, 24 tiles that connect, stuff like that. So you have kind of this secondary, kind of cool challenge system on top. But the system that I really love the most is the overdrive system. And it is a system that sounded really confusing at the beginning, but it makes a huge difference in this game. So when you get into your battle, you have up to four characters, and like Final Fantasy X, you can switch characters in and out. So there's like a primary and a secondary character in each slot, and you just hit R1 twice to swap those characters out. And there's no downside to it, but you can't swap back and forth in the same turn. So you can't like swap this guy out and then swap them back in. You have to wait another turn. You have your normal turn order, and you have HP and like TP, which is like tech points or something, whatever that stands for. There's a bar in the upper left-hand corner. Let me see if I can fast forward the video here to show you, if anyone's watching the video version. So in the left-hand side, it starts with an orange bar. And that's just, you take and deal normal damage, and everything's fine. Then there's this green bar area that's the overdrive bar. If your kind of like pointer is in that, you deal way more damage and you take way less damage. And then all the way at the end is the overheat bar, where that flips. You deal way less damage and you take way more damage. So the balancing act you have in the game now is you try to keep it in that sweet spot of that green bar, and every time you do like a normal skill or take damage, it's pushing further and further towards that overheat bar. But every time you use a skill that has kind of a yellow gold highlight on it, it pushes it back to the left hand side, that kind of orange range. So, and pushing it back to the left is also like switching out or doing defending or doing kind of your ultimate move. You can do that at the same time too. So what it turns into is, unlike most JRPGs where your option is typically, I'm going to hit attack, attack, attack until this like flock of birds is dead, and I'm going to move on to the next one. You almost never use the attack option, because it's nearly useless, and it's super weak. But what you're doing is you're actually buffing and debuffing a ton, and your like the archer that you have has this really cool skill where you can land a poison shot on an enemy, and then in a future turn you hit them with a skill called Pandemic that spreads that poison to all of the enemies. And normally in a game you wouldn't do that, because who cares? I'm just going to attack, 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 and we're done. But because you want to stay in that green zone, you're kind of always pushing and pulling this pointer in that area to try and keep yourself maximized, even in normal battles that you're kind of dealing with, of just like a flock of birds or like a bunch of slimes or whatever. Because most of the battles are challenging enough that you do kind of need to manage that. But it feels really great juggling multiple party members and complementing their skills and kind of planning all this stuff to keep yourself in that green bar and not have it move from that area and kind of get the maximum bonus you can. It's a really, really smart system that I think, as much as we love JRPGs, a lot of the random battles just turn into like, okay, I'm just gonna keep mashing X until everything's dead, and then the boss battles are where things get interesting. But this game kind of bucks that trend in a way that I think is really, really cool. And then on top of it, it looks incredible. It has a really great soundtrack, and the writing is actually really good, which I don't think we get in a lot of RPGs. It's certainly not the like defeat you with the power of friendship thing. It's a lot of older characters that have really interesting stories and really interesting backstories, and they're telling a really cool kind of mature story that is genuinely really going some cool places that I wasn't expecting it to go. Chained Echoes is, I have been playing it a lot, and it's all I really want to play, and it's probably one of the best RPGs I played in a really, really long time. And it's, a lot of people were like, you should play Chained Echoes, it's a really great RPG, and I was like, yeah, okay, sure. But it really is.
I think what finally got me, and it's not that My tastes don't match Austin Walker's, but he did like a tweet or two on it, and I'm like, okay, I just need to spend the $25 and get this game.
Right.
And I'm not like I'm in the first big field area, and I got to get to the town, and I found like
Yep.
4 passes or something like to get in there, and I'm still just kind of wandering around that area. But like, so I don't know about the story, but it feels like one of the freshest takes on turn-based combat in like years. Like
I would agree with that too. Yeah.
it's
And at the
yeah,
point where I am in the game, they introduced this a little bit in the intro with the sky armors, the kind of like flying giant
yeah.
Xenogears mech things. Um, at the end of Act One, there's a achievement or a trophy for it, so this isn't really a spoiler. You get a bunch of those, so you can fight as your characters or fight as these kind of like fiddly Xenogears style mech battles too, and that has kind of added another additional element to this game, which is initially a little bit overwhelming, but because you're kind of instead of dealing with the overdrive gauge that you do when you're on foot, you're upshifting and downshifting gears in these sky armors to kind of manage a different bar in a very similar way to the overdrive bar. And
Hmm.
initially, I think the tutorials in this game are really good, but it's so different from the normal battles that I was kind of a little bit overwhelmed. But thankfully, they do a really good job in this game of saying, here is a new system for you to deal with. Here's an entire dungeon to just explore and learn how to do it. And if you die in battle, you get 3 options. One is retry the battle, and it puts you in your main menu before you retry the battle, which is great. Please, more RPGs do that. 2 is load the last autosave, which autosaves really frequently. Or 3 is just load your last save, which I think is the 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 punishment for losing a battle is almost nothing, which is I think the smartest way of doing it.
That's awesome.
Chained Echoes is really, really good. I bought it, so I'm playing it on PS5. It is on Game Pass as well, which I didn't learn until just today. So if anyone wants to play it for for Game Pass money, however much that costs nowadays, it's really genuinely very good. And if you're not, if you or someone you know don't like playing a lot of RPGs, they have a ton of difficulty options in there where you can actually set the enemy's HP and strength really low, and you can set the overdrive bar to be really big. So you don't have to manage kind of juggling a bunch of stuff, and you can just kind of fly through this game pretty easily, which I think is really smart.
Oh man, that I need to give God of War another compliment.
Mm.
Ragnarok's accessibility features,
Oh, they're so good.
when I saw the turn off the button mash just so you hold it down, like I
Yep.
immediately did that. I'm
Oh,
like,
it's so good.
if I could never mash a button in a game again, my thumb would
Yep.
appreciate
Yeah.
it. I'm
Um,
an old man.
that's right. That's right. But yeah, Chained Echoes is. It, I think the thing that I can heap praise upon it is it looks and it plays like a 16-bit JRPG. Like it really feels and looks a lot like kind of maybe a 32-bit Chrono Trigger, like something that would kind of show up on the Saturn or the PS1. But it plays like a modern game, and it's not interested in being beholden to what a game like that would play like. It really plays like a modern game, and it really has a fresh take on the genre, which I think we almost never get. I think it's really something special.
Yeah, like the map movement is so fast. I love it.
It's
Like,
yeah, it's fast. It's got analog movement, like it's not like a 4 or 8 direction movement. And yeah, you're booking through maps, and it feels really good.
yeah, like
Yeah,
you're talking about platforms. I've been playing it on Steam Deck. It works really good there.
nice. It's on
I
Switch too.
I suspect it is also amazing on Switch.
Yep.
I do find I like the game enough that like I I don't know, man. I might have to buy an extra controller and finally hook my Steam Deck up to my TV in my living room to
Yeah,
play it.
like
Because
get your dock going. Yeah.
I think I want the big screen for it. Like I thought I would just be playing it like I would any old JRPG while I watch TV, but
Yeah,
it's
like
it's
dungeon
kind of
crawling. Yeah.
it's kind of engrossing in a lot of ways, you know.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Please,
man,
if you're listening to the show, you will probably like Chained Echoes. You should really give it a shot. It is it takes maybe for me it took probably like an hour to kind of get into it because I think it has a really cool intro, but until you see where the story is going from kind of that intro tutorial battle stuff, I was pretty interested early on, but once the story gets going, I have been largely playing this in my gaming time. It's a lot of like I got a little more time. I can keep making progress in this dungeon in Chained Echoes, and I think it's really cool. It's a heck of a game. Uh, anything else on Chained Echoes? I think that was your last game, right?
yeah. I think
Yeah.
that's all I got. Because I didn't make it super far into it.
Yeah.
I need to get back to it, but I will later once I beat God of War.
Yeah. Um, my first game is my my daughter is really into Pokemon. Like it's her favorite thing. Pikachu is her favorite one. Got her like so many Pikachu things for Christmas. Like we're very much a Pokemon house. It's the only thing she wants to watch now. Um, I didn't really like Arceus Chronicles. I the kind of going back to our Elden Ring conversation. I didn't really like the change up from the traditional Pokemon kind of world gameplay of something even as late as Sword and Shield. I like that you're going down a route to another town, and then that's going to have another route to another town, and here's a gym. I like that kind of classic Pokemon style. I really didn't like the Arceus throwing a Pokeball at an enemy to start a fight. It didn't really click with me. But my daughter has been seeing a lot of stuff about Scarlet and Violet. I said, all right, for Christmas, let's pick up. She picked Violet. So we've been going through and playing Pokemon Violet. And I feel like they've struck a pretty good compromise between the two styles. Like you can still throw a Pokeball at Pokemon to start a battle with them, largely if they're kind of in the water or flying or moving fast, something like that. But you can also like run into Pokemon in the tall grass, the kind of classic thing. We're not super duper far into this. I think we're maybe 2 hours, I think. So in Pokemon, from like the kind of Pokemon standpoint, we're through the tutorial. And it's largely like, here's 4 things you can do. There's a bunch of icons on your map. Go crazy. So I think we're trying to figure out what we're going to do first. Because they're like, well, find these mythical Pokemon and do the gyms and do these challenges and find spices for me. It's like, oh, okay, all right, hold on. I think if there is something that most people have heard about with Scarlet and Violet is the performance, and I don't want to belabor the point too much, but yes, it's as bad as you have heard, and unfortunately, nearly immediately, as soon as you start the game, the performance is bad. There are times in the open world where it's maybe 10 frames a second,
Oof.
which is really unfortunate for a game that kind of stylistically looks neat. The Pokemon games have always had kind of a cool style. It's always neat to see this field of Pokemon that are running around and oh, there's a Pichu over there. I'm gonna go run into it, and I will definitely start a fight with a Pichu. That's kind of cool. But the performance issues are just something that my 6-year-old does not care about. She's not the one with the controller anyway. She wants me to play it and will dictate where we go, which is fun. But I'm not sure how much I have to talk about this game, other than yeah, performance is pretty bad, and it's a pretty cool thing. Like it's a so far it's I feel more positively about it than Arceus, which is a game I didn't really want to finish. And when my kid wanted to play a Pokemon game, we downloaded Sword because I owned that already. We just skipped right over Arceus. So it's cool. I kind of like it. And we'll. She hasn't felt like playing it too much, um, but I'm sure we'll get back into it and probably put a whole bunch of time into it here pretty soon. Um, Next game is a game actually reminded me a lot of you, Musin, because you said that you played this co-op and really enjoyed it, which is Remnant from the Ashes.
Oh, nice.
The my normal Destiny crew and myself are pretty burned out of Destiny 2 right now. So we are pivoting to other things while we're waiting for Lightfall to come out in a month. Yikes! And we all realized, hey, we have Remnant from the Ashes from the Epic Games Store. They gave it away for free, however long ago. And we're like, well, it's a 3-player game. We tried playing a couple battle royales, and that was okay, but I think we were kind of looking for a different experience. And we've been playing a bunch of Remnant for I think the last 3 weeks or so. We don't get a ton of time every Thursday, but I think we play for probably like an hour and a half at most.
Doing the main story?
Yeah, we're just doing kind of the main story as a trio.
Okay.
And honestly not paying a ton of attention to the story because a lot of it is, hey, save this tree, hey, fight this tree, hey, do this thing, you're in the desert, which is fine. Like it's been a cool story, but that's kind of not what we're super focused on. But man, we're having a blast. It's kind of funny because when we started it, our chorus was kind of, hey, it's a Dark Souls, because you have fog doors and
Oh, yeah.
bonfires and your flask and stuff like that. But I think the shooting mechanics in the game and kind of your class mods make it feel really good and make it feel really different from kind of what I would expect. So it has that kind of undercurrent of kind of base level Dark Souls mechanics, but I think the stuff they put on top of it makes it feel really, really good. And we kind of naturally gravitated towards each one of us is playing one of the 3 different classes. I'm playing as the ex-cultist, I think. It's the one with essentially like the Destiny Warlock healing well thing. And it's cool to see how naturally each one of the classes' abilities kind of complement each other. Is like one of the classes has, we call it special eyes. You can essentially see enemies through walls, but you share that buff with all of your team members, which is really cool. And so far it's been really great. We fought a whole bunch of bosses. We just fought a dude with a giant hammer. Like we're in this kind of, it looks like a poison swamp, but thankfully isn't poison. And this one guy like came out of a pool and he's like, hey man, you need to go kill this beast and get its heart for me. And maybe don't ask a bunch of questions. I was like, great, let's go do it. No big deal. So we're kind of in the swamp area, and we fought this big, like, almost like a Diablo kind of butcher style character with a big hammer who's breaking down walls and stuff. And there's some pretty spicy boss fights, even with 3 people, and being able to res each other. Like this game is on normal difficulties has been a pretty good challenge, which I really appreciate. I'm not sure I can add anything new to the discourse about Remnant other than this game is super cool, and I didn't realize they have announced a sequel, and we are already very excited for it, and we haven't finished this one yet. So it's really clicking with us.
So one thing, once you guys finish the main story,
Mm-hmm.
you may already have it unlocked, but I feel like you get more stuff in this mode if you finish the main story. They have a mode where basically you start out. It's what's that? Words escape me. The other podcast you do with Moon and Monkey.
Roguelikes?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
It's kind of a roguelike mode in that you start out
All
with
right.
nothing, and all the maps are kind of procedurally generated,
Oh, okay.
and you kind of have like these midpoints where you can buy certain weapons or upgrades and things.
Oh,
Um,
cool. That
and
sounds
you
like something we would be way into. I don't think we have that unlocked yet.
okay, you may have to beat the game for it,
Yeah,
but
probably.
it's a really fun mode, and I feel like that's how you get like once you get all your equipment, I feel like that's how you grind a lot of the materials you need for their final upgrades. But I might be wrong. It's been
Sure.
probably a year or two since I played this last.
Yeah. And one thing I forgot to mention too is I really like the skills unlock system they have where you're kind of getting different skills as you're doing different things in the game. Like, I'm playing it with the Hannah and Bill Sifford, and Bill has a bunch of skills unlocked that Hannah and I don't, around like reviving characters faster because Hannah and I are typically the ones that are dying more often than he is. So like he got this thing where it's like you revived your teammates like 25 times, so now you can put skill points into reviving them even faster, which is kind of I'm doing a bunch of sprinting so I can like increase my sprint recharge rate and stuff like that. Remnant is cool. I think we were kind of throwing out ideas of things to play that we've heard good things about, and I don't think we were expecting to click this much with Remnant, but all of us have been looking forward to playing it every week, and when we've only been playing it together, so we haven't been kind of playing it solo. So it's been kind of fun, like looking forward to it
It
every week.
it's a really fun game, and you can
Yeah.
do some absolutely ridiculous builds by the end of the game.
Oh,
Like
nice.
I'm going to do a melee guy that gets life from attacking and
Oh, wow.
regens, and I don't like you can really get near game breaking with some of these builds, but
That's cool.
it's cool and it's very honestly the story kind of made me think of Dark Tower, but
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. And it's nice to see that the story is it takes itself seriously, but it's not like belaboring the point too much. It's like, hey man,
yeah.
go find this thing. Don't worry about why. I know you got a lot of questions, but don't worry your pretty little head about it. And it's like, yeah, cool. Let's go do it.
Yeah, I guess it does have that like that big Souls feel to it, but it's not like there are less control options, and it's
Hmm.
way more. I feel like player friendly than a Souls game is.
Yeah, because I think that's one of the things we were a little bit concerned about when we started. Is it seemed like it was going to be this Souls thing, and it is in that it has like bonfires and flasks and you know spells and stuff like that. But the gunplay and kind of the figuring out dungeons and puzzling and stuff like that's this real
Yeah.
strength of it, not the kind of overly punishing Souls thing.
I will also say there are some puzzles that you're not gonna even know are there unless you Google it.
I have heard that quite a bit, which is I feel like we've figured out a couple that we've kind of like accidentally stumbled on, like, oh, I rolled into this wall and it broke open, and hey, there's a cool weapon back there and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But we've found like maybe one of those, I think.
Yeah, no, I'm remembering like here's a giant circle drawn on the ground, and one character stands on this end, and the other character goes over here and does something, and you do these seemingly unrelated things, and then an area opens up below it or something like that,
Oh
where you
wow,
can
okay,
get this rare armor or something. But
right,
it's I don't remember enough to help guide you guys through that, but.
right,
Once you beat it, maybe look some of that stuff up because
right,
some of
right.
those extra armor sets are pretty awesome.
Yeah, yeah. It's a really cool game. I'm really glad we're checking it out, and I'm it's just a lot of fun. Like it's fun to play one of those games where all three of us are clicking with it at the exact same time. We're like, yep, I'm looking forward to Thursday. We're gonna play through this game, and we're just gonna see what this next fog door does to us and takes us, and kind of have fun with it. So
Cool.
It's been great. I like it a lot. Um, Last game here on my list, because we already talked about Chained Echoes, is a game that I. It's a little hard to explain. It's called Troubleshooter Abandoned Children. Um, the selling point that everyone's saying is it's a combination of XCOM and Final Fantasy Tactics, which when I heard that, I was like, yeah, okay, sure. It's kind of a combination of XCOM and Final Fantasy Tactics, plus, like maybe kind of the best parts of visual novels and kind of like decision games. It's a very small Korean studio. I think they're like 6 people, and it's been in development for a while. And I don't think it's complete, but I think most people are like, yeah, there's only like 50 hours in the game right now, which
Only.
sounds pretty good. So I haven't played a ton of this game. I've gone through the first kind of tutorial mission, and I've gotten introduced to the characters, and I'm kind of at the beginning of the second mission here. But it pretty clearly lays out what the game is at the beginning. And to be clear, this is a PC only game. It's like $24. Normally I bought it on sale for $12. And I one second. I really wanted to give it a shot because a lot of people are kind of saying the right things. And it's interesting because the game's kind of main mechanic is XCOM. We're talking about the half cover, full cover, grid based kind of. You have an area you can move on, and you move X number of grids based on your move skill. And you have you have 85% chance to hit this enemy. Whoops, it missed. It's an XCOM sort of thing. The interesting thing about it is there's a lot of melee focus in this game, as opposed to something like XCOM where it's 95% of it is ranged. This has some range stuff, but a lot of your characters are, hey, I have a sword. I'm going to run up to the enemy and slash them with it, and that seems to be kind of the recommended weapon to use. And then on kind of the Final Fantasy Tactics standpoint, you have a large number of skills that you're kind of mixing and matching your characters on, and kind of inheriting skills from one class to another and that kind of thing. I haven't gotten super deep into that, but that seems really promising. And then between missions, you have these like very large, beautifully drawn kind of visual novel set pieces where you're learning about the world and you're talking to your teammates and you're kind of making friends with them as you're going along, and you're making it's really interesting because it kind of learned a lot from something like Life is Strange, where you have, let's say, like 3 different decisions you can make when you're talking to another character. And one of the first questions the game poses to you is like, hey, do you want to play in offline mode or online mode? And I'm like, hey man, I don't know, online? And because I played online, I can see the decisions that other players have made as I'm making those decisions. So it'll have like a bar at the top of the bubble where it's like, this bar is blue and it's 85% of the way through. This choice is the one that 85% of players made. This one 10%, and this one 5%. It doesn't seem like it really does anything, but I think it's a lot of like, all right, I'm making the same choice that people have, or like, you guys are crazy. Why are you making this choice? That doesn't make any sense. So I'm early enough in the game that I'm not sure I'm seeing the payout of a lot of those decisions. But it seems like that's kind of a cool... It's kind of a cool mashup between all of these different things that they're really trying to go for. and it seems great. A lot of people are really enjoying it, and a lot of people are speaking very highly of it, and it seems like a cool kind of mishmash of all these things that I really like, and I'm hoping to dive into it. I was really hoping to dive into it a lot, but then Chained Echoes turned out to be really good, and like way longer than I was expecting it to be in kind of a positive way. So maybe Troubleshooter will have to wait until the next game I play after I finish Chained Echoes. I think if there's anything else I can talk about on that, but so far so good. It seems really great, and the only downside I have for it is the translation is a little bit stiff. I don't want to say it's bad because it's not like nonsensical or anything like some translations are, but it's a lot of like, oh, I get what you're going for, but maybe there's kind of like a more elegant way of saying that. It doesn't really do that super well, but that's not too surprising because there's definitely a language barrier there, but it still makes sense, and it's still really well done. So that's Troubleshooter Abandoned Children. It says it has partial controller support, so it might have Steam Deck support, but I don't quote me on that. I'm not entirely sure. So I'm not playing with a controller. I'm playing with a keyboard and mouse, and it works really well. Okay, that's all my games. Let's talk about releases here for January 2020. Out right now, One Piece Odyssey came out for PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Series consoles, and PC. That's out January 13th. Are you a big One Piece fan?
I've always been intimidated by the episode count, so I've never really tried it. I have some nephews that adore One Piece, but I don't know if the game, like, I don't know. I haven't looked into this game at all, but like a lot of the way I used to like catching up on anime was just buy the Dynasty Warriors and whatever game for it, and then here's Bleach, whatever, and I just had like 10 seasons of Bleach condensed into this 20-hour game. This is perfect.
Yeah, it very much looks like a Dragon Quest game, like kind of a really traditional JRPG, like a turn-based thing. It just also has the dude who has really stretchy limbs. I also know nothing about One Piece, but I'm very curious to see if you're like you and I and know virtually nothing about the show or the manga, like how easy would it be to approach this and kind of hop in from right now. I'd be really curious to see how this would work out.
Yeah, if it review. Oh, sorry.
No, sorry. I'm just a little bit behind the scenes here. My wife and I are dealing with like a house thing, and we're texting each other about like, we should do this, we should do that. Oh no, we should do this. And there's a really bad storm here too at the same time. So yeah,
yeah. I feel like if this game reviews well, which I have not read any of the reviews for it, then maybe half a year down the line I may look into it. But of the games you just talked about, like, although Troubleshooter Abandoned Children is a terrible name for a video game.
It really is. It really is, yeah.
I think that may immediately make my list, but I gotta play through Chained Echoes. I gotta play through Midnight Suns. I gotta beat God of War. I gotta give Elden Ring more of a fair chance. Like, that's like my next 2 or 3 months of gaming, and you're about to list off another game that I was really hoping to buy near day one and replay.
Yeah, the next game here, Persona 4 Golden, comes out PS4, Xbox One, Series consoles, and Switch on January 19th. This is Game Pass day and date. So if you got Game Pass, Persona 4 is really good.
Yeah.
Also, on top of that, Shin Megami Tensei Persona 3 Portable comes out. PS4, Xbox One, Series consoles, Switch, and PC on January 19th. That's also Game Pass day and date. I feel like, what would be your recommendation if someone is looking for maybe Persona 3 versus Persona 4, what would you recommend them start with?
If you are the JRPG type of gamer who really likes difficult dungeon crawling and like a high level of difficulty and a really good story going along with all those mechanics, I think Persona 3 would be the one to start with.
Mm-hmm.
If you want probably the best well-rounded Persona game that maybe is missing some quality of life features that 5 had, then I think 4 is the one you start with. Like 3 is the one I wish everyone would play that I know everyone won't like.
That's been my struggle with this too, because I really like Persona 3, and I really like Persona 3 Portable because it has the two main characters, and I think it significantly changes this, stuff around. The Fess stuff isn't in there, which I think is great. And you get direct control over your party members, unlike Persona 3 and Persona 3 Fess, which I think makes it a lot more appealing for people that maybe
Oh yeah.
didn't play the kind of classic Persona games. Um, but Tartarus, the main dungeon, it can kind of be a samey experience, and I think if this is your first Persona game, I think that might be kind of tough because your Persona 3 is very much focused on here are the battle mechanics, and here is the kind of day-to-day relationship and schedule building sort of stuff, as opposed to something like 4 and 5, which have the variety of dungeons in them, which I think might make the battle mechanics a little bit more palatable. But man, 3 is really good, and 4 is
Yeah.
really good, and 5 is really good. Like, all of them are really great, but if you get into 3 and maybe it's not really doing it for you, maybe skip on over to 4 and try that, because 4 starts really slowly, but I think once it gets going, it's really, really good.
Yeah. I guess maybe to put it in some numbers perspectives, Persona 3 has one dungeon, and that is Tartarus, and it is
Hmm.
over 300 levels long, and it is all procedurally generated, and your characters get tired and experience fatigue and do worse in battle when that happens.
That's right, yeah.
They can get sick the next day if you run them too hard. Um, and there are not, it's not like you can do one level of Tartarus per day in the game. You have to do oftentimes 10 to 20 in a day
Yeah,
because,
you're pushing pretty hard usually, yeah.
yeah, like you do not typically have time to explore every level. So, like, you really kind of want a guide of some sort usually if you want to try and get everything on your first way through Persona
Hmm.
3, whereas Persona 4, your first dungeon's like 10 levels deep. It's
Yeah.
one character. It is set in stone as to what it is. Um, you still got random encounters, but in having the dungeons in the different locations, I feel like also add to like not the feeling of sameness that kind of the Persona 3 Tartarus kind of suffers from.
Yeah.
Um, Persona 3 story-wise is a darker game. It is
Hmm.
aside from maybe some of the villains in 5, I think 3 is still likely the darkest of the Persona games.
It's like
Um,
consistently pretty dark, yeah.
like you summon your personas by shooting yourself in the head,
Yeah, right.
which at the time I thought was fantastic. as a
It's still a very
as
cool intro animation to that game of like,
Yeah,
what am I playing? What is this?
yeah, but it's not literally a gun. They just call it an evoker and they use it to summon
Yeah.
personas. But in the background, like the writers and artists wanted to evoke that, like, oh God, they're going to commit suicide emotion out
Yeah.
of you when you see it. So I feel like there's maybe also kind of a content warning there.
Right.
Uh, and like I think Persona 4 is going to leave you with the best feeling. And if you like Persona 4 and want something harder that maybe hits in some darker places of life, then please go play Persona 3.
Yeah. And if you liked 5 a lot, I'd say try both. If you've played the SMT games and somehow haven't played the Persona games, you should probably start with 3, because 3 is the most like kind of a traditional
Yeah.
SMT game, and then 4 and 5 kind of, they don't stray far from that, but the Persona games have kind of taken their own trajectory away from the SMT games, and SMT has kind of gone off in a different direction. But 3 is kind of still, the lines are very close to each other still.
Yeah.
But you kind of can't go wrong with any of the 3 of those. 3, 4, and 5 are all really good. They're all going to be on Game Pass now. 1 and 2, Persona 1 and 2 are very different beasts. Same with like Soul Hackers. Those are kind of very different experiences. So that's kind of a different conversation. But all 3 of those Persona games are really good. So very happy that all of them are on Switch, all of them are on PlayStation, and all of them are on Game Pass, because I think that's a really smart decision. So go check them out.
4 works great on Steam Deck, and I look forward to
Nice.
starting 3 on Steam Deck too. So
Yeah, that's exciting. Next game here, Fire Emblem Engage comes out on the Switch on January 20th. I don't know a ton about Engage. I know it from the gameplay and from the stuff that I've seen, it looks like it continues to be the kind of rock, paper, scissors, grid-based sort of traditional Fire Emblem stuff. But kind of like Three Houses surprised me with all the stuff around the battle system. I'm not really sure what all of that extra stuff around Engage really is. So I'm not sure if you do.
I fell off Three Houses pretty hard. And Three Houses kind of caused me to fall off Fire Emblem pretty hard. Like there's a moment there where I'm like, I could get several $100s for the Fire Emblem games I own. Maybe I should.
Right.
Like there was a moment there where I almost sold, but I didn't. They will remain in my collection and worthless. No.
Right.
I don't know. I'll probably look at it at some point. I feel like I read a review that made a point how they're trying to, like, it sounds like it is another kind of Three Houses style, but they're also trying to make it fairly different from it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know. I just realized I never played Three Houses as much as I feel like I would probably like it. There's something about Fire Emblem that I kind of always enjoy, but there's something about it that kind of has never really always clicked with me. But maybe I want, what's that Genesis strategy game we've talked about before that we really like?
Shining Force?
Yeah, I kind of just want them to be Shining Force, and that's not fair because they're different. But also, I meant to talk about this during Troubleshooter Abandoned Children, and I'm like trying to remember the title of that game. If you're someone that likes XCOM or Fire Emblem games or things like that, but hate permadeath for your units, Troubleshooter doesn't do permadeath, because all of your units are named units, but they have kind of like a light sanity meter, almost like Darkest Dungeon. So like if one of your party members gets too beat up in battle, they might have trouble the next day, or they might not be able to fight in the next battle because they got really banged up, but they're not going to die, and you're not going to lose like a main named party member. So if that's bothered you with like Fire Emblem or XCOM or stuff like that, then maybe that's a selling point for Troubleshooter Abandoned Children.
Yeah, I just added it to my friends list or my wish list because there's no way I'm going to remember that title.
No, yeah, absolutely not. It's a cool thing though. I like it. Next up, Monster Hunter Rise comes out PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Series Console on the 20th. This was previously on PC and Switch, if I remember correctly. And I need to remember this isn't the turn-based tactic, like RPG Monster Hunter. Those are the ones I really want to play. That's not available on other consoles other than Switch and PC. This is kind of the traditional monster hunting Monster Hunter kind of game. So everyone seems to really love this one. And a lot of people are like, yeah, that's finally coming to other stuff. So very excited. None of these games have clicked with me yet. I even tried Monster Hunter World was the last one I tried, and I liked that, but it's something about that gameplay loop that has not clicked with me. But I haven't really played it with other people. Maybe I'll recommend that to the Destiny group. Maybe we'll be Monster Hunters. Maybe we'll do that someday and see if 3 people together, maybe that clicks with us. But Monster Hunter Rise seems great. And last but not least, Forspoken comes out PS5 and PC on the 24th. A game that seemingly only you and I are excited to come out.
They evidently have a demo of it. And I need to go play it because I feel like I saw some tweets from people who played the demo and had very large complaints about it.
Yeah, I was going to play the demo too, and the team at Square Enix were like, hey, thanks for playing the demo. Not indicative of the final game. It's actually really pretty old, and we've made a lot of changes, and we are taking your feedback into account. And I'm like, all right, I'm just not even going to play it. Then I appreciate it. I appreciate them getting it out there, but like, I feel like that So That Happened trailer that came out a couple months ago did absolutely no favors for this game, and it was a real marketing misstep, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But man, that game still looks really cool. I think if more people saw how that game actually played, I think they'd probably be pretty interested in it. But I've been talking about it pretty high for like what feels like 2 years now. So I probably need to pick it up when it comes out.
I mean, it looks so good. I don't know if I'll get it on day one, but unless I just read a review that convinces me that I personally will not like it,
right.
Then I'm getting it within either by the end of January or the end of February.
Yeah, it just seems cool. Like it seems like a cool parkour, magic slinging, talking bracelet, modern day lady thrown into medieval kind of cool thing. Like it just.
All those things sound appealing to me. And like, in the trailers, the game just looks gorgeous to me, and it looks like the kind of place I want to wander around and throw spells in, man.
Yeah, it definitely. I really like when big publishers and developers come out with a game like this that's not like, ugh, another one of these, you know? Like, I like checking out when Square Enix or like any of these big publishers do something kind of weird and fun, like Dungeon Encounters, one of my favorite RPGs of all time. You know, like it's like, yeah, let's get this thing that looks like an Excel spreadsheet. Whoops, it's really good. It's like, all right, I should probably keep trying more weird things that kind of leads to cool stuff. So I'm hoping for
just realized I played Dungeon Encounters on Switch. I can buy it again and play it on Steam Deck.
Aha, yeah, there we go. Start a brand new playthrough. I was actually over the break. I was looking at like the games I own on my PS5, and I was scrolling through, and Dungeon Encounters was there. I was like, I can't. I want to play you again so badly. I can't. And then I installed it and played Chained Echoes, and it's like, all right, I'm fine. Dungeon Encounters, you can get thee away from me, Satan. I'll play you again later, but not today. Chained Echoes for me for now. All right, that's all of our releases. I had no time to get news stories. There wasn't really a lot going on because everything was closed for all the holidays anyway. So we appreciate you listening to the show. If you'd like to visit us, you can do so at pickingupthepixels.com. Patreon.com/E1M1. That's where you can support the show financially. $5 a month. It's a recommended tier. You get everything. That's per month, not per episode. We put up a lot of audio every month too. That'd be a lot. That'd be too much money if it was per episode. And we don't delete anything. So it's not like, oh, you only have this episode for a month or whatever. So you can get a whole bunch of exclusive stuff over there in early access. If you can't support us financially, the best way to support the show is by telling your friends, sharing on social media, reviewing us wherever you find us, like, commenting, and subscribing on YouTube. We don't live stream the show, but we do put a video version of every episode of this on YouTube as well. All of that stuff genuinely, I know like comment, subscribe is a meme, but all of that stuff genuinely does help, not only this show, but any other show you do enjoy listening to, especially word of mouth. Word of mouth and reviews are kind of the biggest ones. So if you like what you're listening to here, please tell your friends, and please rate us 5 stars or higher. If you can figure out a way to do 7 out of 5 stars, that helps the show. But please don't hack any storefronts or anything. Like, please don't hack in our name. But all of that stuff genuinely does help. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. And we'll see you next month. Bye.
Bye.